asking you questions about their photos, because we all like to take photos of our family and friends. And we have to go to a short commercial break, but we'll be back with some more questions for you, because I love photography myself.
Great. We're flying through this. Are we going to kill a whole half hour?
Yeah, because I'll ask you some more questions. I don't think Frank meant that we have to stop completely. So. Hi, Devin. Again, we're back.
Yes.
And it's good to see you doing the show, and I'm really thrilled for you. Your show is going to be aired Saturdays at 3:30 p.m. here on WTBQ, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of interest. Many people taking photos out there. What can people do if they're unable to tune in once in a while? That's
a good question. I've been researching your listeners here at WTBQ, Susie. Yeah. And what I found is that most people revolve their lives around the radio.
Yeah.
Not really.
So, I'd like to think so.
Right?
No, but in actual fact, I mean, you do have listeners who, they know that the morning show is on from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. They listen every morning, Monday through Friday. We're creatures of habits.
Right.
And so, I know that, I'm sitting there having my coffee, I'm listening to the radio. When I'm driving, I'm listening to the radio. Mm-hmm. And that's, how it goes. And our listeners are very loyal people. So what can people do if they can't tune in?
Well, I was thinking about that because the nature of this particular show is interactive.
Yeah.
We're going to have people tuning into their computers. It's actual information that people may want to keep track of, so they may want to come back to these lessons again. So how do we maybe make this a little bit more available as time goes on and it's no longer 3:30 on a Saturday afternoon?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm videotaping every show. I'm waving to the camera right now.
Hello.
And what I'm going to do is post these videos on the website, devinschatz.com/WTBQ. And now the listeners will be able to click on the episodes, weekly episodes, actually see the video or just listen to the audio portion of that. And if you heard the show while you're driving and you want to go back home and see the photographs and tie it in with the audio, very easy to do.
That's great.
If you want to even go back to a lesson and review it, it'll be right there on video on the website.
That's great, and people will do it because, particularly if their photo is being discussed on that particular day, and photography is something that you want to see as well. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's a great experience. Audio, visual, everything all tied in one. Have you thought about how you're going to host the show, and will you be having guests?
Yes, I have thought about that. I want this show to be exciting. I want it to be lively, interesting, and I'm just a boring photographer. So
yes.
You're not supposed to say yes, Susie. You're supposed to say Devin.
No, I haven't looked at you as though you're not boring. No, and photography is not a boring topic. I mean, I love photography.
Yeah, but I thought, well, maybe one way that we can keep the show moving and lively and interesting is to have co-hosts. And what I'm going to try to do is have a different host every week that co-hosts the show with me. And I'm targeting a specific group of people. I've noticed that one group of people that has a real interest in photography and improving their photography is young people who are studying photography in high school. So I'm basically putting a call out to any of our listeners who are high school students who are taking photography in school. You can be a co-host on the show. How fun will that be? I have a different student in every week, and we'll interact together and we'll talk photography together.
That's great. And do you think that there is, are there a lot of young people interested in photography these days?
Oh, yes. Yes. We're doing a lot of work right now this time of year with high school juniors and seniors, doing these nice portfolios for them. Instead of yearbook pictures, a little bit more creative style photography for them. And many of them are studying photography in school.
That's wonderful.
So that's kind of how I got that idea.
Yeah. And what will these students actually do in the studio with you?
Well, what we're going to do is have them, they'll read the questions, maybe the listener questions. But one of the most exciting things that we'll do is
we'll get them to do all the work.
They're going to do all the work. I'm just going to sit here and relax, right? We're going to have them submit their favorite photo that they've taken, or maybe a photograph they have questions about that they've done, and we'll put it on the website. And when they're here, we'll bring it up. We'll talk about it. We'll find out what they like about it. Why do they think that's a nice photograph? They may have questions as to what they can do differently. One thing I've learned in my experience is that it actually takes some training to learn how to look at a photograph, how to look at all four corners of it, and how to look at the composition and the light. So as we do that, and we're interactive, the listeners are following along, everybody will benefit, and we'll learn how to look at photos and examine them, and then take better ones as we go along.
But aren't the teachers already doing that with them at school?
Yes, they are, which is good, because in school what they're learning is the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. They're learning basics of composition, basics of lighting, things like that. These basics are very important to them. However, I'd like to offer them another perspective.
Yeah.
I got this idea actually not too long ago. I was working with a high school student. We were doing a photo shoot. And when she came back to look at her proofs, she was absolutely loving these photographs. We did a really cool shoot. And she made an interesting comment that got my attention. She said, these photographs are nothing like what I'm being taught at school.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah.
Well, because the teachers at school, no offense, but they're not photographers, really.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because she said, well, my teacher went to college for photography.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what I said to her is, you know what? Everybody sees life differently.
Yeah.
We all have different ways that we do things. And so what I'm hoping to do with these students is enhance what they're learning in school. Mm-hmm. There's good teachers at the schools. They're learning good things. These kids that come to me and talk to me, they're educated. They know what they're talking about. But I'd like to maybe show them how to add some creativity or a different style of creativity to the fundamental basics that they're learning in school. Mm-hmm. And I bet you, I'm pretty confident that this is going to be an inspiring thing for everybody. The listeners will be inspired as they see fresh work. Yeah. And myself, I'm going to learn and be inspired too by some of the artwork that these young people are putting out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and how can the students contact you?
Again, it's going to be through email. Everything that comes through this show will be done through email. Send me an email at Devin, DEVIN, at devinshots.com. And high school students, please send